The coastal mountains of southwestern British Columbia rise gradually from the water. They are not marked by deserts or open plains, but by dense forest and steep granite walls that face the Pacific air. Howe Sound lies between Vancouver and the small mountain town of Squamish, a narrow inlet where cold salt water meets land that remains wet for most of the year. Clouds move low across the peaks. The forest below holds moisture even in summer. Above the town, the Stawamus Chief stands as a vertical mass of rock. It is not a single summit but a collection of granite domes that rise more than 2,000 feet above sea level. The cliffs are clean and exposed. Below them, the forest is thick, dark, and uneven. There are no clear paths once a person leaves the maintained trails. The terrain beneath the chief is layered. Moss covers fallen trees. Ferns grow in shallow soil trapped between rock and roots. The ground slopes downward in irregular shelves, broken by cliffs and ravines that are hidden by vegetation. Sound does not travel far. Wind is absorbed by leaves. A person moving below the rock faces disappears quickly from view. This region is popular with climbers and hikers. It is close to the city, but it does not behave like a park. The climate stays cool. Rain is frequent. Even experienced visitors rely on visibility and stable footing. Once the forest closes around someone, distance becomes difficult to judge, and direction becomes uncertain. Dave Baird Jr. was a resident of Squamish, British Columbia. In 2012, he was 37 years old. He worked in the outdoor recreation industry and was familiar with the local terrain. Squamish is known across Canada for rock climbing, trail running, and backcountry access. Many residents spend time on the slopes above town. For people who live there, the mountains are part of daily life rather than a distant wilderness. Baird was physically fit and accustomed to moving in steep environments. He had experience hiking and scrambling on unmarked routes. He was not new to the forest or to the granite walls of the chief. On the day of the incident, he was alone. He had gone into the area beneath the Stawamus Chief to explore off-trail terrain. This was not an organized climb and did not involve ropes or partners. There is no evidence that Baird intended to travel far or remain out overnight. Like many short solo excursions, the outing appears to have been informal. He did not carry a full survival kit. He wore normal outdoor clothing and footwear suitable for day hiking. He had no emergency beacon. His phone had limited reception in the forested slopes. The area he entered was not dangerous by reputation. It lay below the main climbing faces and away from technical routes. But it was steep, with uneven footing and hidden drop-offs. The rock in this zone is fractured and irregular, shaped by erosion and constant moisture. Tree roots grow through cracks in the stone. What looks like stable ground from above may not support weight. Search and rescue services in Squamish regularly respond to accidents in this terrain. Most incidents involve slips, ankle injuries, or people becoming disoriented. Falls are less common but not unknown. The combination of vertical rock and thick forest creates conditions where even small mistakes can result in severe consequences. On this day, Baird moved through the forest alone, following his own judgment about the terrain ahead. At some point during his movement beneath the cliffs of the Stawamus Chief, Dave Baird Jr. lost his footing. The exact location of the fall is not precisely documented, but it occurred on a steep, wooded slope below the main granite walls. The terrain consisted of exposed rock mixed with soil, moss, and loose vegetation. There were no witnesses. Baird slipped and began to slide downward. The slope gave way into a series of ledges and vertical drops. He fell approximately 300 feet in total, not in a single vertical descent but in multiple impacts as his body struck rock faces, tree branches, and outcroppings along the way. The fall resulted in immediate and severe injuries. He suffered fractures to his spine and ribs. One of his lungs collapsed. He sustained internal bleeding and trauma to his head and limbs. His clothing was torn. His body came to rest at the bottom of a ravine, surrounded by dense forest and rock. He remained conscious. There is no clear record of how long he lay before he understood that he could not move normally. He was unable to stand. Pain restricted most motion. The surrounding terrain was steep and blocked by trees. He could not see open sky or landmarks. His phone was either lost during the fall or unreachable. No one in Squamish knew immediately that an accident had occurred. Baird had not informed others of his precise route. There was no scheduled return time. From the outside, nothing had changed. The forest absorbed the sound of the fall. No signals reached the town below. Dave Baird Jr. was immobilized at the base of the ravine. The ground beneath him was uneven, composed of wet soil, fallen branches, and rock fragments. The slope around him rose sharply on all sides. Trees blocked long lines of sight. Light filtered down through leaves and mist. He could not stand. Movement in his legs caused severe pain. Breathing was difficult due to injuries to his ribs and lungs. He was bleeding internally and externally. There was no stable surface from which to attempt climbing. Even shifting position required effort. Baird remained conscious and oriented. He was able to assess his surroundings and his condition. He understood that he was injured but alive. He also understood that he was not visible from any trail and unlikely to be discovered by chance. He attempted to call for help. His voice did not carry far in the forest. The terrain absorbed sound. There were no clear echoes or signs that anyone was nearby. He had limited supplies. He did not carry food or water intended for extended survival. What he had on his person was not enough to sustain him for long. Rain fell intermittently, but there was no direct water source within reach. Moisture collected on leaves and clothing. Time became difficult to track. He was unable to walk or climb, and his position prevented any meaningful relocation. The ravine floor offered no exit route. Steep rock faces blocked upward movement. Loose soil and vegetation made downward movement unsafe and impossible. Baird began to conserve energy. He minimized motion. He remained mostly still, adjusting his posture only when pain or numbness forced him to shift. He used his arms to brace against the ground and surrounding roots. Night temperatures dropped. The forest remained damp and cool. Without shelter, he was exposed to the elements. He experienced periods of shivering and fatigue. His injuries limited his ability to regulate body heat. Over time, he became increasingly weak. Dehydration developed. His mouth and throat became dry. He had no reliable method to collect clean water. The environment around him was wet but inaccessible. He attempted to make noise when he believed someone might be nearby. At one point, he heard voices from above but could not determine their direction. He shouted when he could, but his voice was faint. Pain remained constant. He experienced difficulty breathing and sharp sensations in his chest. Movement caused dizziness. He remained alert but physically deteriorating. Search and rescue had not yet been activated. No missing person report had been filed. There was no organized effort underway. The forest continued unchanged. Baird remained in the ravine for approximately 3 days. His condition worsened. Blood loss and dehydration weakened him further. Infection began to develop in open wounds. He experienced swelling and limited sensation in parts of his body. He continued to conserve strength. He remained conscious and aware of his surroundings. He did not attempt risky movement that could worsen his injuries. He waited. Eventually, he heard mechanical noise above the forest canopy. By the 3rd day, Dave Baird Jr.'s physical condition had declined significantly. He had remained in the same position for most of the time since the fall. The injuries he sustained had not stabilized. Swelling increased in his back and limbs. Breathing remained shallow and painful due to the collapsed lung and fractured ribs. Dehydration became a primary threat. His body showed signs of fluid loss. His skin was dry and his lips cracked. He experienced dizziness and confusion during moments of wakefulness. His ability to call out weakened. When he attempted to raise his voice, the sound was reduced to short, strained effort. Exposure also played a role. Although it was summer, temperatures in the shaded forest remained low. His clothing stayed wet. He could not generate enough movement to maintain body warmth. Prolonged contact with damp ground contributed to fatigue and reduced circulation. Infection developed in open wounds sustained during the fall. Cuts on his arms and legs showed signs of swelling and discoloration. Without cleaning or medical treatment, bacteria from soil and plant matter entered the injuries. Inflammation increased. His position prevented proper rest. He was unable to lie flat due to spinal pain. He shifted minimally between uncomfortable angles, attempting to reduce pressure on injured areas. Sleep occurred in short periods and was interrupted by pain and cold. Psychological strain increased as physical strength declined. He remained conscious and aware that his chances of self-rescue were low. He could not see any viable path out of the ravine. The walls remained steep and unstable. Any attempt to climb would likely result in further injury or death. At one point, he heard voices and movement above. A group of climbers or hikers passed along higher terrain. Baird attempted to call out. His voice did not reach them. The forest canopy and distance absorbed the sound. He continued to wait. There was no alternative. By the end of the third day, he was close to losing consciousness for extended periods. His energy reserves were nearly depleted. He experienced moments of disorientation and blurred vision. Pain became constant but duller, replaced by weakness. Unknown to him, a missing person report had finally been filed. Family members and friends had realized he had not returned. Local search and rescue teams were mobilized. Helicopters began scanning the area around the chief. Baird remained motionless at the bottom of the ravine as the search entered its early stages. On the third day after the fall, Squamish Search and Rescue initiated an aerial search of the forested slopes beneath the Stawamus Chief. A helicopter was deployed to scan the area from above, focusing on zones where off-trail movement was common. Ground teams prepared to enter the forest but were limited by visibility and terrain. From the air, the landscape appeared continuous and uniform. The forest canopy concealed most features beneath it. Ravines, rock shelves, and fallen trees were hidden from view. The search relied on slow, low passes and visual detection of movement, clothing, or unnatural shapes. During one of these passes, a searcher noticed a small irregular shape through an opening in the trees. The helicopter descended slightly. From this angle, they identified a human figure lying among rocks and vegetation. Baird was still conscious. He was unable to signal effectively, but his position had finally been exposed by the helicopter's perspective. The aircraft hovered while coordinates were relayed to ground teams. A technical rescue unit was deployed by rope into the ravine. Rescuers reached Baird and assessed his condition. He was stabilized and secured in a stretcher. Due to the steepness of the terrain, a hoist extraction was required. He was lifted vertically through the forest canopy and transported directly to hospital. Medical staff later confirmed multiple fractures, internal injuries, and a collapsed lung. He underwent surgery and extended recovery. Despite the severity of the fall and the prolonged period without treatment, he survived. No celebration followed. The rescue. The operation concluded quietly. The forest returned to stillness. Dave Baird Jr.'s recovery took months. The injuries he sustained during the fall resulted in lasting physical consequences. Fractures required surgical intervention. His lung function recovered gradually. Mobility returned, but not completely. Some damage could not be reversed. The incident did not produce public statements or detailed personal accounts. There were no extended interviews or published memoirs. What remains is a record maintained by medical reports and search and rescue documentation. The facts are limited to what can be verified: the height of the fall, the duration of isolation, and the outcome. Cases like Baird's are uncommon but not unique. Survival after multi-hundred-foot falls has been documented in rare circumstances, usually involving indirect descent across slopes and vegetation rather than vertical impact. Dense forest, irregular terrain, and sheer chance can alter the outcome of otherwise fatal events. The location beneath the Stawamus Chief remains unchanged. Climbers continue to move across the granite faces. Hikers pass through the same forested slopes. The ravines remain hidden beneath leaves and moss. No marker identifies the site where Baird lay for 3 days. There is no sign that an event occurred there at all. The terrain does not preserve memory.